As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sleeping with the Numbers podcast. Dylan here again, and today's episode, like every Wednesday, we're going to be going over the machine learning model picks. And before we get into that, let's start off with a question of the day. And the question is going to be, what is your, and by your, I mean my, favorite type of bet? So, the three most common bets are, of course, the money line, the over-under, and the spread. Money line, that's too simple for my taste. I don't really like betting the money line that often, mostly because the odds really are never that great, and the payoff is never enough for my liking. So it's very rare that I'm doing money line bets very often. So that's out. Over and under is always pretty fun. You always kind of want to bet the over, but the under is almost always the better bet. It's more of a psychological thing, betting the over. Because, as fans, we want to see more points scored. As fantasy players, we want to see more points scored, as long as they're your players. And then the spread, that's fun too. And that's kind of my favorite bet. But my favorite bet is a teaser, and more specifically, a Wong teaser. And if you haven't heard of that, well, first let's go into what a teaser is. So if you're unfamiliar with what a teaser is a multiple type bet or a parlay type bet, meaning you pick one or more teams and all of them have to hit in order to win. And the teaser specifically is for spread bets. So, for example, Thursday night's game, Cincinnati is a 7.5 point favorite. If you were to take a teaser for this, you would pair them up with, let's say Kansas City, who's also a 7.5 point favorite. And the most common type of teaser is the 6 point teaser. And what that does is it teases down the spread 6 points. So instead of the spread being you needing Cincinnati to win by 7.5, you now only need them to win by 1.5 because that teaser brings it down 6 points. Same thing with Kansas City. 6 point teaser, it's now 1.5. Now, the key thing here is you need them both to hit in order to get paid. So Cincinnati needs to win by at least 2 in order to pay. Otherwise, you'll lose. Same with Kansas City. They both need to hit in order to get paid. If they don't, if only one gets it, you don't get paid. So that's kind of how a teaser works. Well, that is how a teaser works, and it has to be 2 or more teams bundled together. You can't just do it with a single team because why would a sportsbook let you do that? That's just, poor money management on their part. So a Wong teaser, specifically. So Wong was a mathematician. He studied the theory about teasers, and he found something that worked. And it worked so well that a lot of sportsbooks try to stay away from these magic numbers. So a Wong teaser is when you take 2 teams, so only a 2-team teaser. It's also a 6 point teaser. And you only take these bets if the favorite is 7.5 or minus 7.5 to minus 8.5. So like we talked about, Cincinnati and Kansas City will qualify for that. And you would only take an underdog if they're plus 1.5 to plus 2.5. So those are the only spreads you would take for a Wong teaser. Everything else, if it's out in between 7.5 to 8.5 or 1.5 to 2.5 on the plus side, you do not take that for a Wong teaser. Now, these became so successful and people were making a good amount of money on them that, like I said, sportsbooks, they changed how this works. So a lot of the times, either A, they will stay away from those magic numbers for the spreads, or B, the payoffs won't be as good. Before, the reason to do these parlay type bets is the odds get boosted. Usually they can go into plus odds, but now sportsbooks got smarter, and you'll usually find these Wong teasers anywhere between like minus 110 to minus 120. But you'll find, even though the payoff is worse, it's actually still a pretty good bet. And the reason for that, and I did it last week, was like I said, I don't do money line bets very often because the odds are never great. So like, let's take, Kansas City last week. They were, I don't know, I think they were like minus 300 favorites or something like that. I would never do that money line bet. But what I did do was a Wong teaser with Kansas City and Carolina. And that got them down to, I believe it was either -1 or -1.5 for both of those teams. And it's basically like taking the money line bet because, I mean, if you win by 1 or 2, that's basically money line or pretty damn close. And that's the reason I like it, because I thought Kansas City was going to win. Now I lost this bet. But it's just a better way to get better odds for a simulated or a proxy for a money line bet is kind of how I think about it. So that is my favorite type of bet. And if you follow my action, you'll see me making those quite a bit. And there's quite a few teams this week that qualify for this Wong teaser. Now, I did a bit more research on the Wong teaser, and like I said, how it's not as common anymore, but someone did some research on it, and they found some additional criteria to add in order to make it a better bet. So, like I said, it's going to be a 2-team, 6-point teaser. You're going to look for those -110 odds. You're going to play favorites if they're -7.5 to -8.5, and underdogs from +1.5 to +2.5. Now, the 2 additional criteria that this person added to make it better is they're only playing games where the expected point total is 49 or less. And the other criteria is only play the road teams. So this person found that by adding in these 2 extra criteria, maybe you're not able to make a Wong teaser as often, but they're more likely to hit, according to this research. So again, something to try out if you like, or, if you just want to mess around, see if it works for you. And if it doesn't, don't play it. But that is my favorite type of bet. So let's get into the meat. So we're going to start off Thursday Night Football. We have the Jacksonville Jaguars against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are 7.5-point home favorites. Money line at -350, over under of 46 points. Jacksonville coming in at plus odds at 275. So the model has this game with Cincinnati Bengals winning, covering a 7.5-point spread, and it's going with the over. And I agree with most of that. I expect the Cincinnati Bengals at home to win this game against Jacksonville. Jacksonville has not looked good at all. Where the Bengals, they're coming off hot off a win against their division rivals, the Steelers. I know that all too well. So I agree. I think the Bengals are going to win this and cover the spread because Jacksonville simply cannot score, and Burrow and Chase seem to be getting it together quite well. The one where I'm a little uncertain is with the over 46 points. The model's predicting about 50 points for the total. Now, for these, both teams need to be able to score. It is not the highest over-under. With these odds, you're giving an implied point total of 26.75 for Cincinnati and 29.25 for Jacksonville. And if we are looking at the team's past games, I don't think the Jags have scored over 20 points. Let me just confirm that. They got 19 last week, 13 the week before, and 21 in week 1, so just barely. So that makes sense at 19 for Jacksonville because it's rare that they're getting to that number. And Cincinnati, 26.75, they did blow out the Steelers, but they only got 24 points there. The game before that, they lost with 17 points. The next one, they won with 27. So that's tough. Their max score so far this season has been 27 points. The other thing that's making me lean towards this under is the public line at the moment. So the public is currently 70% for the over. And as we kind of noted during our review, the public is not great at betting the over under because they always want to bet the over, right? It's way more fun. It's a psychological thing. However, I'm leaning towards the under for this bet. So the other two, I agree. But watch for me to possibly make the under bet here. All right, next matchup, we're going to go into the Washington football team against the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are 1.5-point home underdogs. So that means Washington is 1.5 point away favorites, minus 120 for their money line, even money for the Falcons, with an over-under of 47.5 points. Looking at the model has Washington winning, covering the spread, and the under for this game. So giving the odds and the lines, the implied final score is 23 for Atlanta, 24.5 for Washington. And I think that's completely fair. Atlanta's coming off a win here, Washington off a big loss against Buffalo. Washington scored 21, 30, and 16 in their last three, where the Falcons have scored 17, 25, and 6 in their last three. So this is one where I think I lean the under as well. These two teams, especially kind of since Fitzpatrick went down, I don't expect Washington to be putting up as many points as they were if Fitzpatrick was in. So I agree with the model completely. Every single one of these, Washington to win, Washington minus 1.5, and the under of 47.5 points. Our next matchup is a crazy one. We got the Houston Texans against the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are minus 17-point home favorites. The Buffalo Bills are minus 17-point home favorites with a money line of minus 1,600. Now, I know what you're thinking. The Bills are guaranteed to win. I should totally take this money line bet. It's free money. Please don't. Please do not do this. The risk is not worth the reward. You have to bet $1,600 just to win 100. That is not worth it, even though, it's almost a guaranteed win for Buffalo Bills, but crazier things have happened. It's not worth it. Please do not do that. Going to the model has the Bills winning. Yes, good job. However, it has Houston to cover those 17 points. And I got to say, I think I'm going to take the points here as well if I end up betting on this game. That is just so many points in any NFL game. I don't care how big of a favorite or underdog a team is. That is a lot of points to give a team. So with that implied point total, it's 32 for Buffalo, 15 for Houston. That's so many points. I think you almost have to take the point spread here for Houston. And that's probably what I'm going to end up doing. Now, the over-under is 47 points. The model is predicting 58 total points scored, 36 by Buffalo. And so it will be taking that over 47 points. All right, next matchup, we got a barn burner. We have the Detroit Lions against the Chicago Bears. The Bears are 3-point home favorites, money line of minus 150, Detroit at plus 125, and an over-under of 42, which I think is the lowest of the week. Yes, so this is the lowest scoring, or expected lowest scoring game on the week. So the Bears better hope that Andy Dalton is back. Justin Fields, I don't think wins them this game. So I'm a little bit surprised that the Bears are favorites, but I get it. They at least have one win where Detroit has none, but they almost beat Baltimore. So there is that. Going to the model does have the Bears winning just barely. It's predicting a score of 23-21 for the Bears, so it will take Detroit to cover. And it is predicting just barely over the 42 over-under line. It is expecting 45 points, so it will be taking the over. Personally, that's a very low over-under of 42, so that would be 22.5 points for Chicago, 19.5 for Detroit. In their last three games, Detroit put up 17, 17, and 33. Where the Bears have put up 6, 20, and 14. So very low scoring teams here. I mean, hence the very low over under. I somewhat lean the over on this one, actually. I think Goff and the Detroit Lions win this game outright. So I definitely agree with the model on taking Detroit plus 3, but I can also see them winning this game. They haven't looked completely terrible, at least on the offensive side of the ball. Goff isn't completely incompetent. Hawkinson has been good. He didn't there that much last game. But if we just compare these offenses, total yards, the Lions have 1,118. The Bears have 703. The passing yards for the Lions, 801, Bears 400, rushing yards 317 to 303. Lions have 8 touchdowns. The Bears have only scored 3 touchdowns all season long. So offensively, the Lions are a much better team. However, there's 2 sides of this ball. There's the offense and the defense, as we all know. On the defensive side of the ball, that's where the Lions are struggling. They've given up 95 points, where the Bears have only given up 77. So if the Lions defense can just hold in there a little bit, they're going to win this game. I really believe that. That's where I'm going to be placing my bet. Definitely on the spread, most likely on the money line. And the over-under, maybe I'll stay away from it just because I don't really know how this one's going to go. I can see it going either way. But if Goff and Hawkinson and the running backs Swift and Williams get going, give me the over. But as of now, I probably will not touch that bet. So to recap, models taking Bears to win, Detroit +3, and over 42 points. All right, next matchup is going to be a very good one that I'm going to pay quite a bit of attention to and maybe taking some of these players for DFS. We got the Carolina Panthers against the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are 5-point home favorites with a money line of -200, Panthers at +170, and an over-under of 50.5 points here, giving us an implied point total of 27.75 for Dallas, 22.75 for Carolina. So Carolina, even without Christian McCaffrey, I think is pretty dangerous. Their passing game was still great. Darnold was throwing to DJ Moore a lot, and DJ Moore was catching these balls every single time, and he looked fantastic. And we all know the Dallas defense is not that great. So I can see this one getting over that 50.5 points and maybe even closer than this -5 point spread. The Carolina Panthers are undefeated, where Dallas is 2-1 with their first loss coming off the season opener against Tampa Bay. Now, granted, the Carolina Panthers have not played that great of teams. Their hardest matchup was probably with the Saints, and they just looked way off there. So their other wins are the Jets in Houston. So their stats may be a little bit padded here. I do personally think that Dallas is the better team. But as far as like fantasy goes and everything, I would gladly take players from this matchup. Now let's get into the model. The model has the Dallas Cowboys winning the game, but Carolina to cover the +5 spread. Is also going to take the over 50.5 points. And I think that's all fine. Dallas, I would bet on them to win. Well, what are the odds? I think it's -200, so that's right at the line that I like to cut off my money line bets if I'm doing them. Carolina to cover, I don't mind that either. Like I said, I think this is going to be we're going to find out the truth about the Carolina Panthers because this is their first actual matchup with a competent team. So I hope Sam Darnold gets it done and has a great game, but I think the Cowboys win. I don't know about the spread, but I may be willing to take this over here. If we go to the points per game for these teams, the Panthers have scored 19, 26, 24. Cowboys have scored 41 against the Eagles on Monday night, 20 against the Chargers, and 29 against Tampa Bay. So Dallas is going to score. Dallas is going to score a lot. And in order to keep up, the Carolina Panthers are going to have to do the same. So give me DJ Moore. I don't know about Robbie Anderson at the moment. I have him on 2 fantasy teams, and he's been a big disappointment. It feels similar to the Rams, where everything is going to Kupp. Here, everything is going to DJ, and no soup for Robbie Anderson here and Robert Woods. So Maybe, I don't know if Robbie does anything this game either. If he's going to, it's going to be a deep shot. And I mean, Dallas has kind of allowed that. Let's look at, yeah, Dallas is 31st. They've allowed 331.67 passing yards a game, where Carolina is the best. They are ranked first for passing yards allowed with only 146 per game. That's impressive. But again, maybe some padded stats here. Not for the Cowboys. So passing game very much in play here for Carolina. So just to recap, model has Dallas winning, Carolina covering +5, and over 50.5 points. Next, we have a very mediocre matchup that I don't want to pay any attention to. I'm just going to quickly run through this one because it's not a good game. It's going to be super boring. So we have the Colts against the Dolphins. Dolphins are 2-point home favorites. Tua's still out. It's going to be Jacoby. He looked okay. I mean, he looked better than Wentz, so, you know, I don't think that's saying much, but still. So 2-point home favorites for the Dolphins, -125, money line +105 for the Colts. Low over under again, second lowest at 43. The model still has a thing for the Colts, and I don't know why, but the model is still taking the Colts to win, Colts +2. However, it is taking the under 43 points. I'm not going to tail this one. This is one I will still stay away from. And that's kind of been the story all season long. The model really likes the Colts, you know, given their historical stats and everything. It's making these predictions for them that simply are not there. So this is one I'm staying away from. I won't be betting this, but the Colts to win, Colts +2, under 43. All right, next we got another high-scoring matchup that I, again, may be touching here for DFS. We got the Cleveland Browns against the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are 1.5-point home underdogs, meaning the Browns are -1.5-point away favorites. Vikings at +105, Browns at -125 for the money line, over-under of 51 points. I can see this easily hitting the over. If we're looking at points scored for Cleveland, it's been 29, 31, 26. So they've been scoring. For the Vikings, it has been 24, 33, 30. So again, two very high scoring teams. This is one where I would take the over. So let's see if the model agrees. The model is taking the Browns to win. I agree with that. It is taking Minnesota to cover, however. So it's predicting a score of 32.6, of course, no fractional points, but 32.6 for the Browns, 31.23 for the Vikings. So Browns to win, but Vikings to cover. For me, I agree Browns to win, but I would probably also take them -2. You know, looking at Minnesota's losses here, they did lose by 1 against Arizona and 3 against Cincinnati. So sure, maybe that line makes sense, but the Browns offense is just on fire at the moment. You know, OBJ came back and he looked okay. He looked fine. Probably the best he's looked in quite a while. Definitely the best he's looked since he's been on the Browns. And then on the other side of the ball, the Browns defense is tough. They've only allowed 60 points this season. Minnesota's allowed 78. I agree. Both of these teams are definitely high scoring. Browns have 10 touchdowns. Minnesota has 9. But the Browns just eat that clock. And the defense is able to get that ball away from you quickly. So I think the Browns win and cover. Next matchup here, we have the New York Giants against the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are 8-point home favorites, -375 for the money line, +290 for the Giants. A lower over-under of 43.5 points, which implies 25.75 for New Orleans, 17.75 for the Giants. The model is taking New Orleans to win, New Orleans to cover, and it's actually going to take that under 43.5 points. So in the past, we've seen the model kind of favor the over. This week, it is pretty even actually, and that's good. I did make a few tweaks to the model, so it is focusing more on more recent history than just the previous seasons, because there's finally, I guess, enough data that we can kind of look back now on, rather than just being like, oh well, Kansas City was amazing last year. They made it to the Super Bowl. Look how good they were. That means they're going to be good this season. As we've seen, not the case. So I think that's going to make it a bit more accurate, hopefully. But that is a change that was made this week, and I hope it works. I hope it works. So Giants here, of course, winless. They just lost against Atlanta, 17-14. So the Giants have scored 14, 29, 13 in their last three. Saints have scored 38, 7, 28. So Saints, again, incredibly difficult to predict. I don't know what kind of team they are. I agree that they'll win here, but it could be a mess of a game. The Giants might be able to cover this 8-point spread here. Either way, even if I think the Saints are going to win, I'm not touching that minus 375 money line. Not enough return for me. So it really depends what Saints team shows up. If they're going to be able to score at will, if Kamara's looking good, if their defense wants to play defense, it's really their game to dictate. The Giants are sadly just kind of there for the ride. Luckily, Saquon Barkley seems to be getting back to himself. He scored last week, so hopefully he gets the ball quite a bit more. And if they have a more dangerous running game, they can get more going in the passing game as well. Model taking the Saints to win. I did just notice that when we took this bet, it was New Orleans minus 7.5. It is. We're going to base these off the closing odds, so pay attention to that because these might change. But currently, when we ran the model, the spread was at minus 7.5. It's currently minus 8. If it stays at minus 8 when the closing line happens, the model actually has it exactly on. It's predicting 25 for the Saints, 17 for the Giants, and plus 8 would make them tie. So I don't know what that means. I don't know what we do. Do we take the plus 8 or the minus 8 if it's predicting exactly on that? That's actually super interesting and a problem. I don't know what we're going to do. Well, let's get more into these fractional points. Okay, so just barely, if the line stays at 8, the model is actually going to take the Giants plus 8. I had to get down into the decimal points here. So, so if it stays at 8, it's going to take the Giants to cover, actually. But if it comes back down to 7.5, it's going to take the Saints. It is actually that close. And I want to take a moment here and talk about one of our new affiliates. We did Prop Talk with my friend Neil, where we went on Monkey Knife Fight, and we played a couple lineups where it's all prop bets. That's what Monkey Knife Fight is. So Monkey Knife Fight, you go in, all prop bets. And so you can go in there, you can bet over under of fantasy points on different players. You can bet, you can pick 3 players, set a touchdown line, and if they get over it, you get paid. So it's actually quite easy and quite fun to play. But they are our new affiliates, and we will be playing on their platform again during Prop Talk. And if you are interested in checking out Monkey Knife Fight, please click our link. It will be in the description, and you can get some good bonus offers there. All right, halfway through, we're going to hit our next matchup. We have the Tennessee Titans against the New York Jets. So Tennessee 2-1, New York 0-3. So the Titans, no surprise, are going to be 7.5 point away favorites, minus 350 on the money line. Jets at plus 290. Kind of moderate over under at 45.5 points. Of course, most of those going to Tennessee, with an implied point total of 26.5 to 19. Getting into the model has the Titans winning. Yep. Titans to cover, probably, and the under 45.5. And this is one where it's super interesting. And I never really paid that much attention to public betting, but we have a friend who's really into it and likes to fade the public quite a bit. And his pick last week was Miami to cover, and I'm like, no way, no way. And if you listened to the show last week, I was all about the Raiders, and my friend's like, 80% of the bets are on the Raiders to cover. I'm easily taking the Dolphins because of that. And it's interesting because, from a data standpoint, why does that matter? And it just contradicts, how I think about these things, but it worked. It worked. The Dolphins covered. So that's something that I have been paying attention to a bit more now when I'm making my bets. And so if we look here, 92, we're still early in the week, but 92% of the bets are on the Titans -7.5. So only 8% is with the Jets to cover. And that makes it enticing to me. And my friend, again, texted me and said, yeah, that's the bet to take. He's like, it's hard to bet on these bad teams. And, like Neil said, betting against the Jets is usually an easy win. But they got to cover at some point, right? So that's one I'm thinking about in my head. I don't know how much it matters. The public did pretty good on the spread last week. Let's take a quick look and see how they did. They went 8 for 6 on the spread. So who knows? Who knows? That's one TBD, but it's just something I've been paying attention to a bit more. So Titans to win, Titans to cover, under 45.5 points. All right, next matchup. I believe this is the highest scoring predicted of the week. It is tied. Cool. So again, another DFS target here. We want to target these high scoring predicted games. So we have the Kansas City Chiefs against the Philadelphia Eagles. Chiefs are -7 away favorites, -350 on the money line. Eagles at +270 and an over-under of 54.5 points. Chiefs have been, of course, a bit disappointing, as we all know. They only have one win. They're 1-2. So is Philadelphia. So it makes this matchup interesting, but I have to think that the Chiefs are upset at how they're doing. I mean, Andy Reid went to the hospital. I'm not saying that it was because of how they're performing, but I'm sure it doesn't help. So in the last three, Kansas City has scored 33, 35, 24. So all pretty high scoring. The Eagles, 32, 11, 21. So the Eagles are trending downward in points per game. So this is one where I lean towards the under just because of how the Eagles have been performing. I think Kansas City, of course, scores. Their implied score is 30 3/4, where Philadelphia is 23 3/4. So I can see Kansas City hitting that 30 mark. I just have a tough time with Philadelphia getting near those 24 points. So who cares what I think? Let's see what the model thinks. So the model has Kansas City winning the game, Kansas City -7, and it also thinks the under. It is predicting, wow, just barely half a point. So it's predicting 54 points, and the line is at 54.5. So that's still under. So that's the bet we're going to have it make. And I tend to agree. I think this will be an under, just because I think, it takes two teams in order to hit these point totals. The Chiefs, I think, score quite a bit. I just don't know if the Eagles do. And, let's play around. Let's look at the public. Yeah, okay. So currently 65% is on the over, leaving 35% for the under. And as we know from last week, the public is not good at betting the over-under. Again, it's all psychological. Everyone wants the over. So the public last week went 5-9. That's not including the Sunday night game and Monday night game. So let's just look at that real quick. Okay, so they hit the over, Green Bay and San Francisco. So that puts them at 6-9. And the over was also hit for Eagles Cowboys with 62 total points. So 7-9. So still under 50% for the public's over under. But for the Eagles Chiefs, I think I am leaning towards the under if I do bet on this at all. In our next matchup, this is the one that's tied for the highest over-under of the week. We have the Arizona Cardinals going to Los Angeles to play the Rams. The Rams are 5-point home favorites, minus 200 for the money line, plus 175 for the Cardinals, and 54.5 again for the over-under line. So another high-scoring game, and this will probably be my biggest target for DFS. Because this one I can see hitting the over, where, both of these teams are high scoring. Both of these teams undefeated. Let's look at their last three. In their last three, Cardinals have put up 38, 34, and 31, where the Rams have put up 34, 27, 34. So yes, I definitely believe in the over for this game, and give me all of the fantasy options. Stafford, Kyler, Kupp, Hopkins, Kirk. Hell, give me the running backs too. Chase Edmonds, Darrell Henderson, Higbee. This is going to be a big target for me for DFS. So looking at the model has the Rams winning, but Arizona covering that plus 5 point spread. It is also taking the over. It is predicting 60 points to be scored in this game. 32 for the Rams, 28 for the Cardinals. So here we have a NFC West matchup. The 1-2 Seattle Seahawks take on the 2-1 San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are -3 home favorites. Currently, that's at even money. So interesting there. That might entice me to take that. So -3 favorites for San Francisco, -150 on the money line, plus 125 for Seattle. Another decently high over-under of 51.5 points. That gives an implied score of 27.25 for San Francisco and 24.25 for the Seahawks. So this one will be interesting to me. San Francisco has had some easy matchups. Detroit and Philadelphia, both wins. But Detroit kind of kept pace with them in that first game. They were coming back towards the end, but San Francisco ends up winning 41-33. Against Philadelphia, they only win by 6 points, 17-11. And then they lose to Green Bay 30-28. So they're actually another one that's kind of hard to tell what kind of team they are. Green Bay, obviously their toughest matchup. They lose just barely in the final seconds to Aaron Rodgers because that's all he does. So that's a tough one. The only bet I am probably confident in here is going to be the over. Seattle's defense has not looked good. And the 49ers defense hasn't looked fantastic either. So let's check out how they've done so far. So the Seattle Seahawks have scored 28, 30, 17. 49ers have scored 41, 11, 28. So I think I'm pretty confident in that over 51. I can see this going back and forth because I don't think either defense is great. Russ and Jimmy might just end up having a shootout. And that's great for fantasy. So looking at the model is going to have the San Francisco 49ers winning, covering, and over 52. Or the line is currently over 51.5, but when we took it, 52. Either way, over is what the model will be taking. Next, we have a matchup, and one that I took the bet now before the closing line because I think it is off. So currently, the Ravens, 2-1, play the undefeated Denver Broncos. Broncos are at home and 1 point home favorites. They have a -115 money line, Ravens -105, and really what that means is it's a toss-up. Flip a coin is what Vegas is saying at the moment. Lower over-under of 44 points, but give me Baltimore. I know that they almost lost to Detroit. They honestly probably should have lost because the world record field goal is kind of a fluke given they didn't throw the flag on Baltimore. Nothing to take away from Justin Tucker. Best to ever do it. But I think that game was misleading. I think the Ravens are a strong team. The Broncos, they haven't played anyone. That's why they're undefeated. They played the Giants, Jacksonville, and the Jets. Come on. Of course they're going to be undefeated. I think most teams would be undefeated if that was their lineup. Unless you're one of those teams. So it's very misleading for the Broncos. And I don't know why the line comes out like this, but give me Baltimore to win. Give me Baltimore to cover. That I get it. All of Baltimore's games have been close. Their defense has not been able to do much, but they've been putting up points. 27-36, 19 was the lowest against Detroit. I understand Broncos defense is very talented, but they have padded stats at the moment, given who they've played. So looking at the model agrees. The model has the Ravens winning, the Ravens +1, and it is taking the over 44 points. I agree with it on all three of those. Like I said, I think the Ravens win, which obviously they're going to cover if they're the underdogs. And I can see this hitting the over. Both teams have kind of been able to score. We talked about the Ravens. The Broncos have had 27, 23, 26. So all in the 20s there. But again, playing against poor teams. So this is really going to be telling for what the Broncos are. Another thing I want to mention, the game should have been higher scoring. They should have blown out Detroit, but Hollywood Brown had quite a few drops that should have been touchdowns. So another thing to kind of think about here. All right, our last non-primetime game, we have my Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Green Bay Packers. Packers are 6.5 home favorites, -300 on the money line. Steelers +240. Over under 45.5 points, giving an implied point total of 26 to Green Bay, 19.5 to the Steelers. I'm not betting this. The only thing I will bet is the under. I don't know how the Steelers score at the moment. We just seem off on the offensive side of the ball. And then without Watt, that defense is completely different. So I won't touch the point spread. I won't touch the money line, but I'll take the under. I'll take under 45.5 just because I don't know. I don't know how the Steelers score. We've scored 23, 17, 10 in our last three. Packers have scored 38, 17, 30. So I'll take the under. The model agrees. The model has Green Bay winning. It is taking the under 45.5 points. And it is taking the Steelers to cover at +6.5. So maybe, again, this one's a toss-up for me. I'm going to be too biased on this pick, so I'm not going to give my input. But the model thinks that the Steelers cover. Now for some primetime games for Sunday Night Football, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 2-1 against the New England Patriots 1-2. Tom Brady goes back to the Death Star. That's what I'm going to call it. The Death Star at Gillette Stadium in New England, so he can punish the Patriots for what they've done to him. And that's exactly how this game's going to go. So currently, Buccaneers -6.5 away favorites, -275 on the money line, +225 for the Patriots, an over-under of 49 points, giving an implied score of 27.75 to Tampa Bay, 21.25 for New England. Give me that under. That under is easy for me. I get it. I can see Tampa Bay running up the score. Tom Brady wanting to run up the score on Bill. That'll definitely be fun. But it takes two to tango, and I don't know how the Patriots are scoring here. Mac Jones has not really been able to get it done. They lost James White. Harris has not been able to do much. on the ground. So I don't know. I don't know how they score and who scores. But Tampa Bay knows how to score. They put up 31, 48, and 24 in the last three. Patriots have put up 16, 25, and 13. But I think they play a very tough Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense and a team that's going to be hyped up to get Tom a win against his former team. So we'll be keeping an eye on this one, as will the rest of the world. The model thinks Tampa Bay wins. The model thinks Tampa Bay covers. And it's taking the over 49. So I agree with it on the spread and the money line. However, I do not agree on the over. I'm going to be taking the under. And just for clarity, it just barely took the over. It's predicting 50 points and the line is at 49. So if that closing number changes, so will the model's bet. So please keep an eye on that. You can track it on our Action Network at SWTN_ML_model. We also have links in all of our descriptions. And our final game of the week, Monday Night Football, we have an AFC West matchup. We have the first place, undefeated Las Vegas Raiders against the third place, 2-1 Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are 3.5 home favorites, minus 175 money line for them, plus 150 for the Raiders, an over-under of 42.5 points, giving an implied point total of 28 for the Chargers, 24.5 for the Raiders. I can see that hitting the over. I think both teams have the ability to score. Looking at the last three, Raiders have put up 33, 26, 31. Good for them. They've been able to, put the pedal to the metal and score at will. They've had some fantastic games, and it's interesting and nerve-wracking to watch them play. The Chargers have put up 20, 17, and 30. Their one loss coming against Dallas. So I think one I didn't expect in the Raiders. Two, the other I did expect with the Chargers. Herbert has looked great. But, credit where credit's due. Carr has also done okay recently. He looked awful week one, but his stats make him look better. Also, Peyton Barber looked awesome, and I was lucky enough to have him in one of my DFS lineups. Keep an eye on Josh Jacobs. I'm not sure if he plays, so pay attention to that. We'll talk about it again in our injury report episode coming out on Saturday. So keep an eye on that. Listen to that. But let's see what the model thinks. Model is thinking that the Raiders stay undefeated, is taking the Raiders to win, and of course they're going to take the points there for the Raiders at plus 3.5. And it also thinks the over 52.5 will hit. So, man, that's a tough one. I agree with the over. I don't think I will touch either the money line or the point spread, just because I kind of just want to enjoy this game. And it's really close to call. It's easy. My heart wants to say the Chargers win this easily, but my mind is telling me no. Really, because the Raiders somehow seem to squeak one out every single week. They barely won against Baltimore week one. They came out and beat up Pittsburgh. I'll give them that one. And then they barely win against Miami in overtime. So they're able to get it done. But on Monday Night Football, I won't be betting on anything except the over, because I don't know what happens. I'm just going to enjoy the game. That's going to do it for the model picks here. So again, if you want to keep up with the model picks, check them out on our website, sleepingwitthenumbers.com. You can also follow our Action Networks. The links to those are in all of our descriptions. And you can also follow us on Twitter at SWTN_podcast, on Instagram at Sleeping With The Numbers, TikTok at Sleeping With The Numbers. You can search for us on YouTube at Sleeping With The Numbers. Really just look for Sleeping With The Numbers, and hopefully you'll be able to find us. The last thing I want to talk about here, each of these episodes we've kind of been promoting BarkBox, and that's because we really do think it's a fantastic product. Subscriptions are the thing now. There's a subscription for everything now, so why not have one for your dog? They come with treats, toys. It's really great for them. I recently got another puppy here, so getting these bark boxes is fun for him. It's fun for me. It's fun for my other dog, Barkley. They have a blast. I know Pat's dog, Scout, enjoys them. He's been getting them for quite some time. He got me into it. And so we're affiliated with them now. And if you want a free extra month, go ahead and use our link that's in the description. That's going to do it for this episode. We'll see you all next time.